So I have learned a silly little magic trick that I kind of enjoy. So I've been talking a lot about energies and, basically reflecting back what people are putting out, right? So a few months ago, I had the realization, it's like, my dad would listen to the stuff on TV or on his phone or whatever, and would have it turned up like he was doing us a favor to force us to listen to it, even though he knows that the stuff he's listening to I don't want any part of. So yeah, back then I realized that all I had to do was just walk around listening to my stuff without headphones, and eventually, he'd either get headphones or would turn it down, or he would do something different, right? So my headphones have recently died, so that's not I don't have that as an option anymore right now anyway, because I gotta find, I have new ones in my cart on Amazon, but I haven't got them yet. I have a couple sets somewhere in the house that I have no idea where they're at. I thought they were in a purse or on my desk somewhere, which there's one purse that I have used at all in the past several months. Usually I don't carry them unless, like, whenever we were going to the hospital all the time, I would go out of my way to make sure I had my headphones on me. So for stuff like that, or like if I was going to be there a while, I'd have my notebooks, which I forgot to find the page that I was going to want here in a little bit. But yeah, so that was a thing that I started doing at one point this year. But then the other day, I walked in to the kitchen and he had something really obnoxious. It was like political bullshit, and somebody was, speaking favorably of the option that my dad likes and all this stuff, but it was just sounding really hateful and icky. And there's a song. My brother introduced me to it, I think last year, maybe the year before, but I've really come to appreciate it this year. And it is by a group called the Rotting Christ, and the song is called Apage Satana. So when I looked it up, because like, okay, I'm listening to the song, it's badass, and clearly it sounds like it's talking about something about Satan, right? Well, so I looked up what that actually means, and the translation that came back said, "Be gone, Satan." It's like, that's pretty cool. And it's got lots of drums, and I love me some drums. So it has become one of my go-tos if I need to, or if I want to put myself in a better mood, if I need to clear bad energies out of my system, all that fun stuff, then I can go to the song and, dance it out, do whatever, And one day I was at the cemetery walking the dogs, and I had it playing, and it was low, so we could hear it, but I was pretty sure the little guy at the other side of the section that we were at probably couldn't have heard it. But it was funny because I was noticing he all at once looked really uncomfortable and like got out of there in a hurry. And it's like, I don't feel like he was listening to this music, but at the same time, I feel like that energy. It's like, so there's the whole thing with that. But anyway, so my dad has this political bullshit on TV, and I turn the song on and I turn it up. It's like, well, you gotta listen to that. I'm gonna listen to mine over the top of it as per what you would do. So, and it just magically, the political bullshit just disappeared from the TV. It's like, hey, this is fabulous. I love it. So yeah, so that's a whole thing. But yes, I've been thinking and spending a lot of time with the energetic work this year and navigating that whole thing. And back in June, I've talked about before, we went to a celebration of life for a family friend that passed away in March, I think. last year. And yeah, so we got a celebration of life thing. And I had been going to the classes at Interpath, the little metaphysical shop. And at one point we talked about, I think Lanita mentioned that we would practice basically using our energy to fill up a space and to kind of just see how that works, right? So I had a conversation with somebody else about doing this and about letting like other people's energies, like when they're really negative and focused on you, being able to let them pass through you, so you witness the emotion but you don't hang on to it, kind of a thing. So then at the celebration of life thing, Eye of Ra, Eye of Horus. It's supposed to be Eye of Horus, but sometimes it goes Eye of Ra and turns backwards. But anyway, well, I guess not really backwards, just goes. I mean, one's the left eye, one's the right eye, so whatever. But anyway, so I was at the celebration of life thing, and I'm there with my parents because obviously we went together, and a couple that we used to spend a lot of time with because my mom was friends with the wife in high school, and they were friends with this other lady who lost her husband. They had a group, so yeah, so we were with these people a lot back then. Well, the one couple that joined us, we hadn't seen in years. Well, my mom has seen the wife a few times, like bump into her at the store or whatever, or class reunions. That was a thing. They would all apparently go to the class reunions and enjoy each other there and whatnot. So that was the whole thing. But then the husband at this thing, the sun was shining right in the middle of his back. So I get that it was really bright and hot that day. It was in June. So he goes to the other side of the tent. But at one point, it's like his energy felt like it was just kind of imposing itself on me. And it's like, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. And so I was trying to figure out, it's like, okay, so just go inward for a moment. It's like, how do I make him go away, kind of a thing, right? And so I thought that, or I had this thought of, he's making me uncomfortable. Can we get him to move? And within like 30 seconds, he starts looking really uncomfortable and he goes back over to his seat. And then like he just looks increasingly agitated and finally looks at his wife and says, I think we need to leave. It's like, okay, so like this is like within 5 minutes of me having this thought. And it's like, ooh, so it does work. This is interesting. Show me more. Let's learn more things, right? So yeah, so that's been a whole thing that I've been working on. And why did I start with that tangent? I know there's a reason. I've been having some thoughts today that are just kind of okay. I was walking the dogs. It is very cold. It says it's 33, but like the real feels like 19. We walked a lap and then we got back in the car because it's cold. So I think it was like 0.3 of a mile. Not that matters. But I had this thought on the drive over to the school that, all this stuff is coming into clarity. It's like, what if the world that we perceive as reality is actually the subconscious happenings, because everything's happening basically in the dark, right? So we're trying to navigate through these dark spaces where everything's kind of beneath the surface, things lurking about. And what if the point of the awakening journey is just the realization that this is the lowest level that there is in this realm, I guess. Yeah, but it's like, oh, so basically we're just here meandering around this life in the subconscious, and bringing light into, or like bringing things into awareness, shining a light on it, which makes perfect sense. As I was thinking about it. Yeah. I've been having a lot of like thoughts that have been kind of, I mean, probably sound crazy if I just randomly start spouting off about them. I mean, but that's kind of what I do here, right? So this is my channel. So if you found your way to my channel, welcome to my chaos. Talked a lot about how like my painting projects and stuff, it's like I have to get all this chaos out of my system so I can be able to see it and look at it to make the connections and all sorts of things. And brother trying to be a naysayer, I'm not going to do it. I've been working on him with some stuff too. So, okay. Last video I did, I was talking about like being agitated with like the mess in the house, and it feels like, or that I've been feeling like I have to leave my own part of the mess as a means of pushing back against the mess that feels like it's imposing itself on me. And like this whole energetic thing, it's crazy. But like just the energy of these things, like I've found that like when I was doing really good, being productive, getting a lot of stuff cleaned up, purging a whole bunch of stuff. I've burned like 20 to 30 boxes of things this year just to get them out of my space, and it has been absolutely amazing. And gotten rid of, like, donated a bunch of other stuff besides. So yeah, just like clearing stuff out of my space has been amazing. And at some point, it's like I hit kind of a wall and haven't been able to go any further. And so I've been thinking about that lately, and then I made that connection the other day where it seems like I've had to, or I felt myself having to wall off these, or like my areas, to say, hey, I exist here too, and, you know, claim some space in that space despite all the purging I've been doing and whatnot. But I have these moments where I've started to feel like I will go into like this little vision of being with these friends that I haven't met yet, and finding myself basically going over to like a little half wall thing and like sitting down in front of it, putting my hood up, and just kind of like shrinking down as small as I possibly can and thinking through what's going on. It's like I find myself with this idea of I feel so exposed. And then that's been a whole thing too, right? So yeah, so I'm thinking about this feeling exposed. And I had this one thing came up, like I had commented on a band page and they responded, and it's like, whew, you know, and it kind of brought one of these sensations again. So then, okay, the reason that came up was I pulled some cards last night. It was my new moon reading, but I was a day late on it. Didn't do it the day of the actual new moon, but still the energy of and the surrounding days. So I still did the new moon reading, and the cards made me think, and I actually have them written down, so I'll get to those in a minute. But you know, just like with what I was reading, it's like I have to do something. Like I was looking at my room yesterday morning, and it's like, if nothing else, that comforter that is not being used, that is clean, needs to go into the bottom drawer on this dresser that, you know, the bottom drawer is empty, but I have a laundry basket in front of it and other stuff that has fallen down there. It's like, if nothing else, I need that situation handled. Nothing else, get the bedding in the dresser and at least have that much done. So I'm doing this thing, and I had gotten distracted with the band song while I was doing the card reading, it's like I just paused for a minute and kind of took a break. I was talking to my brother at the same time I was doing all of it. So then I go to my room and I'm cleaning, and then I get a response on the YouTube stuff, and it's like, yeah, I find myself like I've been doing this work and I've been having this conversation in my head with, family members about like the stuff that's been going on with, also made that comment the other day on here about, about potentially just saying to my grandmother, congratulations, if nothing else, you will be able to successfully die a miserable bitch. Whether that ever actually gets said or not, I don't think is the point. I think the point of feeling it and having that thought that is put out there, like in this little space, I don't feel like I will necessarily have to say that at all. I feel like just because I have stated it, she'll be able to receive it. And I've talked on here before too about, I feel like, that people talk about like angels and spirit guides and all this stuff, and it's like, I kind of feel like it's all higher versions of us sharing these details with these other people in this space. So we're basically each other's spirit guides, right? So as we learn something and bring it into the collective consciousness, it makes it accessible to other people that might need it, whether or not we ever actually speak it to them or we just put it in the space. Like just our having witnessed it for ourselves and putting it into the collective awareness allows it to be received by others. Yes. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I had this thing come up, and then I found myself, so I had the conversation with my grandma in my head, and other family members were there in my head. And, I found myself on this tangent of basically yelling at the fact that because you chose to stay miserable over trying to protect your family, basically ended up just like kind of driving a wrench in the whole thing, and just like the whole thing just all blah, because then because there's no matter what my family says, there's like that connection with my grandparents was pretty toxic. And when I found this article that had been done in the local newspaper when they had their 50th wedding anniversary, and we had a party for them. And the way they were talking about each other versus the way I experienced them growing up, it was just kind of like, this is the biggest load of shit I've ever heard. Because they didn't talk nicely to each other. And, at one point in the article, my grandparents were talking about how, well, when we got married, you stayed married because there wasn't another choice and all this stuff. It's like, but that doesn't mean that it's because you were happy in that situation or anything. You just thought there wasn't an option. And the thing that I was kind of yelling in my head about was, because you're so afraid of being alone that anybody is better than nobody and better than being alone. And it's like, I've lived that. It's not. It's not at all. The marriage that I had, based on what I saw of my family, was very much not that. It was amped up the misery, and it was like, this sucks. So I'm kind of having this spiel in my head, and that's the whole thing. And then this YouTube thing pops up, and then I find myself just I fall over the top of this pile of clothes that's on my bed so I can get into these empty drawers on the dresser. I just start crying, and it's like, what's happening? And then that feeling of exposure is back, right? So then I'm thinking about this whole thing where, okay, so my book, I am in book number 9 now. And yeah, my little stickers for it. This is Twin Flame book 9. And now we're in a new year. So I cannot say that I did all of the days of last year, but most of them. But the big thing has always been for me, I needed to make the writing a meaningful, purposeful thing that I did constantly. Basically to resolve the chaos, and to make connections amidst the chaos that has always been in my system and that I've been trying to learn from and navigate through and, make these connections and whatnot. So what I was writing last night, I was thinking, okay, so before that, when I had the scenario with these people that I haven't actually met yet, right, and like having this conversation with them, because I got distracted away from the situation with the family in my head and found myself kind of sitting on the floor with my feet crossed and my arms over my knees and my hood down and just trying to shrink up. And it's like I heard myself basically saying to these future friends that okay, it was basically thinking through the process of a hermit crab needing to go to a different shell, right? So I'm thinking through, it's like, but he's out of his shell and he's all naked and it's really weird looking and it's really uncomfortable. And I was just focusing on this feeling of being exposed, right? So then I was writing through this whole process that had been going on in my head, and it's like, but you have to leave the shell to be able to go to the bigger shell. So this is a part of expansion. It's like, oh. I was so focused on like feeling exposed and the uncomfortable part of being exposed that it didn't really occur to me that it's just a natural part of the growth. It's like, oh, okay. Well, if you put it that way, so I'm just like going to my next shell, right? Because I've expanded beyond what I can get out of this one. And yes, it's an awkward and uncomfortable thing to go in between the shells, but at the same time, it has to be done. But then, once I get to the bigger, more suitable shell, then I can be back in the little coziness of my new home situation. Yeah, this is my life, kids. This is how my brain works. Yeah. So the cards, because I feel like they're super relevant, and I wanted to. They were really relevant when I was just thinking last night, and in between before I got to the cleaning and all that stuff. So I have this Writual Planner thing that I use, and I've gotten them for like the past 4 years, I think. I have one for this next year now, and so here's an interesting point. It's like I still have the remainder of the week in the 2024 planner. Do I go ahead and finish out those days, or do I just move into the the first week of the new planner? Or do I just use different cards and pull a bunch of cards? Because I'm not above that. I enjoy pulling cards and learning things, and this new moon thing was just like, oh, totally on it. So, yeah. This is my life. Okay. So for the new moon reading, the question, where am I now? And the card I got was Beyond Illusion. This is the Osho Zen Tarot. And it says, this is the only distinction between dream and the real. Reality allows you to doubt. The dream does not allow you to doubt. religions have been enemies because they've been cutting the very roots of doubt because they want people to believe in certain illusions they have been preaching. Well, I feel like that's kind of been a lot of the purpose of my channel too, right? So clearly that's very relevant to where I am, right? So, and that I have talked about that book that I was reading, Wisdom of the Shamans, Don Jose Ruiz, I believe is the name. I'll have to double check that and put it in the description. But he was talking about, that's basically what a shaman is somebody that's aware that this is all a dream, and yeah. I mean, yeah. So this is the big one that really hit home. What is influencing me? Integration. It says the conflict is in the man. Unless it is resolved there, it cannot be resolved anywhere else. The politics is within you. It is between the two parts of the mind. A very small bridge exists. If the bridge is somehow broken, the person becomes split. If the bridge is strengthened so that the two minds disappear as two become one, then integration and crystallization occurs. It's like, okay, I feel that. So this navigating through still having to deal with the existing toxic family systems that I'm trying to navigate my way out of and get into a better situation, all that stuff. It's like, I don't know if there was a specific part that I read it in, or it was just the combination of all of these cards. But actually, it might have even been a different reading. I don't know. It all runs together. Somebody was talking about you don't get to skip out of what's going on in your life. It's like you still have to be present for where you're at. It's part of the journey, part of learning, part of growth, and all this fun stuff, right? You don't just get to realize all these things from the old way of being, and because you're angry about them, or because you feel a certain way, you don't get to just like, okay, that's over now, so now I'm just going to go be somebody else. There's like this this fine line you have to walk, the little skinny bridge, where you have to figure out how to pull the two existences together with the way that I was and the family that I'm from and the situation that I'm currently still in, because I'm only just starting to learn to have bigger and better dreams for myself. Yeah. Still gotta figure out where I'm at in this space, because I'm still needed in this space. So, and that's that too. That goes back to one of those things where when I was in high school and I was going to church all the time, trying to make sense of it all. I remember thinking, I would go into this little dinky church that I went to with my brother. Started going there because my grandma was going there. And my aunt and uncle started going there at some point too. So when I started going back, because the suicidal ideation and everything was too real, I guess at that point, I was trying to think that church was a way that would make that go away, and it didn't. But I would sit there, and they had the Bible verse over where the preacher was talking, and it was John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. But then I really was spending time with the idea of, they were claiming that God was this all-loving figure, but then there was the whole idea of, well, you have to believe this way or you're going to hell. I was like, I really struggled with the idea that a truly loving God would create this thing where the only option was you go to hell when you die because you were so bad. It's like, it never sat right with me. And of course, now that my grandfather has passed away, I've really come to the realization that hell is what you go through before you can truly live. And that man never lived a day in his life because, he was always obsessed about death. So it's like, to me, that's the sadder thing, that he was so stuck on this fear of dying, and for what? It's just a natural cycle of life. It's it's just something that's going to happen, right? It doesn't mean the energy ceases to exist. It's just this form no longer exists, right? So to fixate on the fear of what is or isn't out there after this life, it's like, that's an unfortunate way to go. Not necessarily, but for most, you tend to get hung up on the being damned to hell thing, right? But it's like, that's basically the purpose of my life, I think, is to realize that, hell's not somewhere you go when you die. It's something you got to go through before you can live. And then, if we go back to that point where I'm making the connection that this is the subconscious level that, I've kind of been playing around in, trying to bring things into awareness for the collective, the collective, which altogether is God, basically. So if you want to fixate on, well, God must not be real because she's not fixing this thing or whatever, it's like, okay, so what are you doing? And all we can do is whatever our little piece of the puzzle is, and, do what we came here to do, right? And for me, I think that's this whole journey with the healing process, and the fact that I have no shame when it comes to airing my dirty laundry, I guess. Because that's basically been what my channel is, right? So I've talked a lot about my journey and the stuff that I've been learning, and cried my way through most of the videos, probably. But I feel like that's been necessary, because at some point, people that can find stuff that I've had out there whenever I get to where I'm supposed to be going, which there too, the journey is part of it. So you don't just go from where you were to where you're supposed to be. You have to take the steps. You have to do the healing work. You have to process the things. You have to expand and move to the bigger shell, all that fun stuff, right? So it makes perfect sense. Oh, and plus, I just looked at this next card section. Well, the next question I got 2 cards for. And, I'll get to that. But it just, honestly, now I'm just distracted with that part of of what I was saying. The journey. It's part of the process. You got to make sense of the things. It's integrating the things that I know from how my life was with the things that I realize for the now, right? So what have I released since the last full moon? 8 of Clouds, which is guilt. It says, this moment is forgotten when you start thinking in terms of achieving something. When the achieving mind arises, you lose contact with the paradise you are in. Forget about sin and saintliness. Both are stupid. I like Osho. Both together have destroyed all the joys of humanity. How can you enjoy life if you are continuously feeling guilty? And then the other one was 2 of Fire, possibilities. A world of possibilities is open to you because you have grown more loving to yourself, more relaxed, and at ease. Now you can recognize possibilities as they present themselves, sometimes even before others can see them. Mind can accept any boundary. The reality is that by its very nature, existence cannot have boundary, because what would be beyond the boundary? So, since it's the question, what have I released since the last full moon, I think that whole thing is the guilt around wanting more and dreaming more for my future, for my current existence, for all these things. It's like, I've talked on here before, it's like the way I was raised was basically, you don't have this life to, it's not your own life. You basically exist to come back and take care of your parents when they start going downhill because their parents are no more and all this stuff. It's like, but that's a really shitty way of being, and I don't want to not live my own life at all, but yet at the same time, my entire life basically grew me up so that I did not know how to do anything else on my own. And what I've been trying to figure out now is, the journey, the getting to where I want to be, but learning to integrate, to enjoy where I'm at now, because now is all there is. My brother and I've kind of been both working on that whole thing. We're at different stages of it, because I feel like I've been working on this stuff a little bit longer, but because of what I'm doing, I can see how it's also affecting him. And, at one point, I was thinking earlier, it's like, there was a time, and I don't know if it was something I received from him in my experience of him this year, or if it was something I was remembering from another time, but I think it goes back to that everything is now thing. But I was thinking, at one point, my brother's energy communicated with me that this wasn't the life that he was going to awaken in. And it's like, so I was kind of sitting with that thought. It's like, well, I cannot say enough how, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for the fact that he exists. Because, when I've talked about, like, there's always 5 guys that I can, are linked in any situation that I'm trying to navigate through, right? So there are 5 guys that I have long said I could directly say were responsible for my still being here and not for following through on the suicidal ideation, all that stuff. And that was my brother, my high school ex, my high school BFF, Charlie, he's good people, and Tyler and Paul. Tyler and Paul, of course, were the ones that I was in drumline with and, started band with in 6th grade, but they both had music in their families before then, so they had, Paul, I think, did piano, and Tyler, of course, did drums. But then when we got to percussion with the band, when I think our class was the last where our 6th grade band class was separated, so percussion had its own class, and there were only 12 of us. After that, I think it was part of all the other group. But I loved that class, and Tyler and Paul, it's like, they didn't do marching band the first couple of years that I did. They went and did sports and stuff when we got to high school. But then when winter percussion came about, they came back to band because they had to do band to do winter percussion. And then it was kind of like, we're back together kind of a thing. But they were two that, in spite of the bullying that I used to encounter, like, they made space for me to exist and for it to be okay for me to exist. And so I can say they were directly responsible in a lot of ways for the fact that I'm still here. But, so there's that. Oh, but with my brother, I was like, I was sitting with that thought for a while, and then at one point I was like, I can't accept that. It's like, he doesn't have to come all the way around. I don't know what his life path there is or isn't, but I know that I cannot just disappear from the life that I've had and not bring him with me, kind of a thing. It's like, I'm doing this work. He's going to somehow benefit from me doing this work also. And then, yeah. You know, and one of the things that I've been realizing this year, it's like, like, my company here. Hi, thank you. Yes, I love you so much. She's like, hey, it's about time for DINNER, and we're still sitting here. Why? Why indeed? We're not done yet. I gotta say, I like this. It's cute, but it's also kind of annoying at times. Sorry, it is. Yeah, so anyway. Yeah, excuse me. So one of the things, like, okay, when I started realizing in the past few years that I was feeling really uncomfortable in my body, or unsafe in my body, it's like, once I started using the rocks for grounding and shielding my energy and all this stuff, then I started to realize it also benefits me to share this stuff with my brother, and to, you know, so his energy becomes more stabilized as well, and it's no longer a contributing factor to the problem. So, God, my nose itches like crazy today. I don't know what's going on with that. But yeah, it's like, for me to feel safer in my own situation, my own space, my own body, all this stuff, it's like, it's helping to share the knowledge that I'm learning. So, like, with the color frequency stuff, or, you know, black being a grounding and protective color, you know, so if anybody gets that from my channel or whatever, because I picked it up somewhere along the way and then realized in connection with my mostly black dogs back here and the one on her shirt, yeah, you know, but like I've talked about how in 2020 I watched the one Gem Goddess tarot reading, and she said black dogs are important to me and it's about time. And this is the only time in my life I've ever had black dogs, and then I have 3 that are primarily black. It's like, that's obviously important. So then when I start going to the classes in Inner Path, Lenita says that black is a grounding and protective color. It's like, so that makes sense. That's, you know, my dogs. You know, and then when I went to Annie's class the next week, she said that she associates black with the color of source because everything comes from nothing. It's like, so basically what you're saying is, since, you know, the black dogs meant it was about time, basically at a time I was unable to take care of my energy, to protect my own energy, you know, when I was with my ex and all that stuff, which was when I got the dogs. Basically, source, if you will, provided me 3 dogs in my life that are primarily black to help do this shielding and protective work, even though I didn't know it was even a thing that needed to be considered. Which makes sense for why it would be about time, because this whole journey has been me learning and, you know, sharing my growth journey, and making sense of things in that way. So, yeah. You and then, that point where it was literally just Jen's casual remark of, if we leave the area, you would be welcome to go with us. And it's like, y'all, I wasn't seeing any way out of that town. I didn't know, that was even an option. But then, in spite of all these messages that I've been getting about the importance of having patience, there are a lot of pieces that have to come together. It's like, then just out of the blue, she says, if they leave the area, I would be more than welcome to go with them. And it's like, that means there's a possibility of leaving the area and starting my own life and doing something else, right? So that's been a whole thing. And like when I was talking about the stuff with my grandma the other day, it's like, with my parents, the boundaries and the cleaning and everything. And it's like, everything exists with both and, really. It's like, yes, their energetic space is imposing on my space, and it's very uncomfortable at times. And yes, sometimes I feel like I have to basically leave my stuff there so I can still have my space in this existence and whatnot. But at the same time, it really needs cleaned up too. So it's like, all you can really do is focus on the now, right? So yeah. Anyway, so tigers are important for like the twin flame journey and whatnot. I've talked about them before because tigers, with my animal apothecary deck, talk about claim your power and also sacred boundaries. It's like those two have gone they fit very closely together for me this year, and they have been a super huge thing, right? And then I pull this card for what seeds am I ready to plant? With 6 of Fire, success. And the picture is like a kid riding around on a tiger, and it says, because of your willingness to accept the recent challenges of life, you are now or soon will be enjoying a ride on the tiger of success. One moment you are the wave, the next you are the wake that follows. Enjoy both. Don't get addicted to one or the other. It's not possible to always be on one side of the peak. Enjoy the peak while it lasts. Enjoy the valley when it comes. And I think there was another one for that, if I can turn the page. Yes, Page of Rainbows. But yeah, that was another tiger. So that came up, and it did not register until I wrote the words. You are now or soon will be enjoying a ride on the tiger of success. It's like, oh, okay, there's another another tiger for me. So yeah. Page of Rainbows. For adventure, this again is the what seeds am I ready to plant? Truth is a radical personal realization. You have come to it. Knowledge is certain. The search for personal knowledge is very hazardous. Nobody can guarantee it, but the very search for it will help you grow. Danger and sacrifice will be there, and there will be a million opportunities to go astray and get lost, but it is the only way to grow. So, yeah, well, that's definitely where I'm at now. Here we go. Number 5 is, how can I help my intentions grow? 2 of Rainbows. Moment to moment. This card challenges us to move away from our preoccupations with other spaces and times and stay alert to what is happening here and now. Life is a great ocean in which you can play if you can drop all your judgments, preferences, and attachment to details of your long-term plans. Be available to what comes your way as it comes. Don't worry if you stumble. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and continue on your way. That kind of makes me think back to that whole, the feeling exposed thing with connecting with these other energies. It's like, I mean, it's scary, right? That whole being exposed and in the middle of the growth process and whatnot, but it's like, don't worry if you stumble, it's okay. Just pick yourself up and dust yourself off and continue on your way. So it's like, there have been times on here where it's like, ooh, did I maybe sound like an asshole in there? Well, but probably do. Probably many times. But that too is part of the journey. It's part of the figuring out how I got to where I have been, and figuring out the places that doesn't sit right with my system and working through those. And this whole channel is basically my live action experience of working through the shit to, make, to strengthen the bridge between the two sides of the brain. You got that whole ego thing with the, ego versus spirit, that duality piece. And if you can't make sense of the two together, then you end up split within yourself. But they're both there. Essentially the ego is the side that's trying to keep us safe, and prevent us from the harmful things, but yet also in a way causing some of the harmful things because, we get stuck in bad patterns and can't navigate out of them because we don't see a way out of them. And so you still have to be able to see it and be aware of what's happening, and one of the things that I've really struggled with in the past year or so is, thinking that the dark, the bad is supposed to just go away, but it's not. It's the shadow exists. And, your shadow traits and all these things. It's like, that's a real thing, but it's not a bad thing. Maybe it makes you uncomfortable. Definitely got that plenty of times, but I always was trying to think it was something that wasn't supposed to be an issue anymore. But basically it's that whole point of unifying the duality, I guess. It's like, yes, it's everything is both and, right? So you can't have, day without night, dark without light, all this stuff. It's like you have to be able to, it's just another way of seeing things. It's not bad. It's just there are times when, we see things clearly, and there's times where we don't. And when we're not seeing things clearly, it's still playing a role in what we're doing and saying and how we're living and all those things, but there's just another aspect of what we are. It's still, the whole point is unifying yourself, basically. Anyway, what can I rely on during this cycle? 8 of Rainbows, ordinariness. You are facing a time now when this easy, natural, and utterly ordinary approach to situations you encounter will bring far better results than any attempt to be brilliant, clever, or otherwise extraordinary. The special gift you have to offer now is presented best by taking things easily one step at a time. And also, existence. Now is the time to look at whether you are allowing yourself to receive the extraordinary gift of feeling at home wherever you are. If you are, be sure to savor it so it can deepen and remain with you. You are not accidental. Existence needs you. Without you, something will be missing and nothing can replace it. That's what gives you dignity. The whole of existence will miss you. Everything in the universe will feel a small piece as vacant, which cannot be filled by anybody but you. It's like, that whole point right there. It's like, I feel like that, if I really understood that and was able to come to terms with that idea earlier in life, it's like that whole suicidal ideation thing probably wouldn't have been as much of a struggle as it was. But it was always, I was trying to destroy a part of me that, it was, okay. A big part of the whole suicidal ideation thing that I struggled was because I never felt like I fit within my family, right? And I have come to learn there's lots of reasons for that. But the biggest thing is, it's like my mom's side of the family was basically teaching me that the other side of the family was bad. And the problem was, my mom's side of the family is all into sports and all that stuff. I never was. I was always into music, but then because the other side is bad, and, you know, all these things. It's just, I completely missed out on the point that my dad's side of the family, you know, my grandpa was into music, like, apparently to the point where he was competing in, like, the state fair, on violin or whatever. It's like, how much different would things have had the opportunity to be had I known that and understood. It was basically like my mom's side was always trying to snuff out my dad's side, you know, because my grandpa, the patriarch of doom, was acting as though, okay, he always had that unhealed Virgo aspect of super critical and judgmental, and that was what was passed on to everybody, right? So whereas my mom and her sisters were trying to earn his affections and all this stuff, you know, plus of course the society that he grew up, the world he grew up in, that was acceptable, and not only acceptable but preferred. I mean, essentially, because going back to the whole religious point that, you know, those cards were talking about. God, my nose is driving me nuts. And the issue that I've always had with religion, is that fact where, you know, they always tried to snuff the feminine, right? So, okay, so you always heard about the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, and so they're like keeping it super patriarchal right there, like, and the Holy Ghost, obviously they ghosted the feminine, but the point is, you have to have the masculine and feminine, they have to coexist, and you can't just get rid of one. And patriarchy is the system that's trying to basically get rid of the feminine. You know, it's that point where boys can't have emotions, but you know what? All that does is lead to some really off-balance dudes throwing their weight around, don't care who they hurt. That's a problem. You know, and then, you know, religion teaches that women are supposed to be submissive to men, right? And, you know, if you have questions, you ask your husband in the privacy of your own home or whatever. It's like, nah, that's some bullshit. Because it goes back to that point of Holy Ghosting the feminine. You know, and there's a Francis Chan book called The Forgotten God, and I think the point of it, I never read it, I had it for a long time, and this is kind of the thing with books, is like I'm more of a book collector than reader, but I will visit them from time to time, but usually having them in my space, I still get something from them. And it's this energy piece I'm learning. That the energy of the thing communicates with me even if I don't actually read the thing. But like that whole book, I think, had to do with the idea of there's this Holy Ghost, but everybody basically glosses over it, blows it off, and is in favor of the Father and the Son, and that's all they focus on. It's like, well, here too. Yeah. You know, and then that creates even further imbalance because, you know, one of the characteristics of the divine masculine is protective and safe. And if that's not the case, if it is completely devoid of the feminine, you know, and if it's devoid of the emotional side of things and, you know, the not, I guess not being able to appreciate the, see, one of the things the feminine has is, okay, the Kalima energy, I think it's the sacred rage, and seeing something, okay, seeing injustice and having a response to it, because injustice is a problem. You know, injustice means that somebody's getting screwed somewhere, and that is a problem, so that's one of the things the feminine is able to see. And, like I've said many, many times, we all have both the masculine and feminine within us, and we have to unify the two parts of ourselves, so yeah. That's one of those things, like, on the twin flame pages that I occasionally follow. So, okay, I have these different pages that I'm subscribed to, but I don't like giving all my time and energy to any of them. It's as they come up. If something about a specific video seems to speak to me, then I will watch it, because then it feels like it has a message for me. That's the same with like tarot readings. Like, there for a while I was a little bit addicted to them, and it's like sometimes they're not relevant, and it's like the ones that are meant for me will find me. Like that one day when I figured out who my twin flame was, and then I was listening to his music a lot, and then I was like, this feels borderline obsessive. And the first thing I came across was a White Feather tarot reading where she said, your guides are saying, she said, you're worried this feels obsessive, but your guides are saying it's not, and it has to be this way right now. It's like, well, that was clearly for me, and then the next reading that popped up was this White Rose guidance one, and it was specifically a relationship type reading, but like messages from your person kind of a thing. But the pile I picked, one of the cards she said specifically, or she pulled specifically said, listen to my music. And I was like, obviously that's for me. And there were two right there that's like basically smacked me upside the head. Yes, they're relevant. It's like the same with the Gem Goddess one and the one that got my attention. And then I heard the thing about the dogs, and then, just all these connections that I'm making. So this takes me back to this point on existence. It's like, whatever you are experiencing or have experienced in your life and are able to witness it and see what is good or bad about it, or whatever, the things that need fixed, then, if you're not here to do that, you're contributing a very important piece to this puzzle as well. And, it's like we're all in this thing together, but like religions being enemies of each other, because they want you to focus or to think that there's no how is it that said? Of course I closed it. Sorry. I went right to the last page. So hey, yes, Beyond Illusion. It says, the only distinction between the dream and the real. Reality allows you to doubt. The dream does not allow you to doubt. The religions have been enemies because they've been cutting the very roots of doubt, because they want people to believe in certain illusions they have been preaching. So it's like, yeah, right there. But that, see, these cards, and it's like, these are the ones that I specifically pulled for these questions. And, like anytime I've watched the tarot readings or whatever, it's like I never have any kind of faith in my ability to get messages from the cards, and yet I still get messages from the cards, like very loud and clear. Like this whole thing, all these are things that I wrote from the guidebook, or summarized for myself and for my Twin Flame book. Yeah. Number 9. Which has a number of completion, by the way. So, and that had a whole thing too, because I was born on the 9th. So it's like, this is about a time of completion, right? Well, basically. So yeah, the things, I'm learning the things, but okay, going back to the point of, this is what gives you dignity. The whole of existence will miss you. Everything in the universe will feel a small place is vacant, which cannot be filled by anybody but you. It's like, whatever you're here to witness for your own life experience, you know, the things that you can call attention to because you lived through them. It's like, that's important, you know, and that's a critical piece of this puzzle as well, you know, the whole collective consciousness thing, you know. And I've said on here before too that I think that if we all stepped into the fullness of who we are and what we are here to do with the lessons that we've learned and all of this, it's like we could literally solve all the problems of the world. We just got to start doing what we came here to do and focus on that, while also, you know, respecting the divinity of other people as well, and, you know, that acknowledging that they're here for a specific thing as well. You know, that goes back to the 5 dudes that I was thinking about earlier, okay? So, so the first 5 I talked about earlier, and that was, you know, the ones that basically are the reason I can say that I was able to make it this far in my life. The next 5, I had this vision that I always saw when I was in high school. Like my senior year, I started seeing it quite a bit. And it was like 5 dudes in a band that is like, we were out to change the world together. You know, and so we were going to do big things right that way. But I always thought at the time, because it was how I was seeing it, you know, I was thinking the band that my ex-boyfriend was in high school, which was a Christian band, so good Christian boys, of course. So that fit that idea that I had back at that time, you know, but it never made sense because, you know, as I've said, it's like Brandon was just kind of whatever. We didn't really have any kind of connection. Steve hated me. You know, Brad and I haven't spoke since we broke up, except for like once or twice, I think. And Tyler's dead, and Paul moved to another state. So it's like it wouldn't make sense that it was them, right? Well, so then when I started skating and all this stuff, and I started figuring out, or I made the connection with the twin flame thing, and, you know, then I realized it was this different group that I was out to change the world with, right? But for that specific set of 5, you know, it's like the specific energies in that group was basically the combination of energies basically woke my energy up and made me realize that, okay, that dream, going back to that one dream where they all appeared in back in 2020, before I had any idea that there was a twin flame connection or whatever. And I didn't make, back then I was just so confused at why these guys that I didn't know from this band that I just started listening to were like actually showing up in my dreams. There were like 7, 7 at least that the twin flame appeared in, but there were others that the other people appeared in as well. And then, you know, I had one day when I was listening to it, like a live stream concert, it's like, there's something here for me. It's like very clearly there is something here for me. And it's like I came to the twin flame, it's like, yes, you know, but then as I was going through like other people, it's like there's something there too, and there's something there, you know, as well. So for these other 2 people, I had this moment on the treadmill at the gym back in January. You know, I turned the treadmill on, didn't even have a chance to step on it, but I like looked up and had like this sort of vision where I'm staring at these other 2 guys, and I hear myself say, what, you don't recognize your sister because you've never seen her in the physical before? It was like, see, so there's more to that right there, right? So it's like, but it was like that specific combination of people was what kind of activated my energy, I guess, in this direction. but I didn't know who they were to me at that time. So this is all stuff like January 2024 is when I made the brothers connection. And then the twin flame connection, that came up in fall of 2023. January 2024, yeah. And then, since then, it's like, I'm seeing, like, other things that are still, it's like the energies are moving around. It's like, this is why I know we're all connected. So it's like, I went into the dream again, I had this sort of vision where I realized that, I was able to start communicating with the twin flame. Like the first dream before, when I had the dream, when I was asleep and it was just a dream, then I was aware that they were all there, and it's like, what is this? Why are they here? Kind of a thing. But the thing that I was distracted by was the fact that my ex was there on this couch next to me, and he was just like pissing me off. That's what I remember. But then the next time I go into this dream, I'm realizing that's like, his energy is a leech and he is not supposed to be here. But these other guys are. But then trying to navigate through that. So then another time I go into the dream, like the first time, it's like the twin flame is there, and I have this, it's like we're talking, but he's not able to look at me. And he says, if you need my help, let me know. And I said that I felt like I needed to do it by myself. And then I realized that I didn't need to do it by myself. I felt that at the time. And basically what I started to pick up from the dream was that it was safe to come out now, and, safe to start doing this work, and for my energy to start for growing, to be more of who I'm here to be, kind of a thing. But then I see these other things like, okay, so this is like one band that he's in, and then there's another one where, he's kind of like the front man kind of a thing, right? And it's like that one's like start putting out different music where it's like, it feels, the energy feels like home, kind of, and then there's another one now where it's like he's kind of made these connections for himself and is growing his own energy, and, going back to that twin flames meet you in ascension kind of a thing. And, so now he is able to step into another supportive role of somebody that, he thinks is going to do big things too, right? But he's like they're like different groups, and, started out with 5 in each. They're not all that way now, but, well, they weren't all to begin with either, but it's like 5 is the magic number for some reason. And, at least in my connection and my making sense of things, it's like, yeah, it's all over the place. But, and like the one group, the 2 guys that were kind of like, it was the combination of those 5 energies that activated me and my energy and kind of started making me more aware of things. It's like that when they went on tour, one of them wasn't with them, and then since then a different one's left. But it's like it took that specific combination of energies that kind of woke me up, I guess. And like the Harmonious Hearts page, she talks about keys and codes, and it's like this is that. It's like these specific energies that basically what they put out together starts waking up others in a certain way, and like this for me, it's because of this twin flame thing. But this twin flame thing has made me start doing my own work more and really focusing on, stepping into higher levels of myself, you know, and doing all this work, risking the exposure of the awkwardness of going between houses, my little shell to my roomier shell, but like going, that thing with my brother with, it being a possibility that I might be able to go with them. It's like, just them putting the possibility out there opened up a whole world of possibilities for me, because now it's like, even if I don't end up going with them, the universe has ways of making things come together and work for me. I just gotta trust that it does, right? And then just, keep living in the moment, follow through with where I'm at each step of the way as I'm in that step, and then it'll all get there. And the journey is part of it. You don't just arrive at the destination. If you just arrived at the destination, you would miss everything that you learned along the way of the journey, right? So, yeah. And I think that's a big part of this whole thing. So, yeah. I guess I'm going to go home, and this little kid is the one that's most aware that her DINNER is late, and we're good till she starts spelling. It wouldn't surprise me if she could spell now. But I didn't say the word, so she's not going to freak out. Hi, Gidgy. You want to come see me? Come here. Come here. Yeah, hi. Oh, and hi, Tasman. Yes, I love you too. So yeah, I guess I'm going to go do that. And you want to talk to me over here? Oh, I can't see over there. Let me talk to your brother. I can pet him. Okay. There's my Dazzy. I petted him anyway. Hey. You see here? Oh, thank you. Yeah. Anyway, now that we're open, we're gonna wrap it up. So, as always, I appreciate you, and until the next time, see ya.